Hi there, welcome back to Business on the Vine. I'm your host, Lady Jen Du Plessis, and today I have with me someone who's really special in my heart, and that's Gordon Bernhardt. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Jen, thank you so much for inviting me. I do appreciate this opportunity and having this nice conversation with you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, a little bit about you is that you have had this beautiful career as a financial advisor, and in your own company. You have a couple of books out that are great. I love this book, by the way. When you sent it to me, I started reading it. It has something very close to my heart. I think we had just gone on a cruise in Spain, and that you made, being knighted into the Royal Order of Constantine the Great. Our prince lives in Spain. Yeah. So it has all kinds of really good things, but the lessons that you taught, in this are just amazing. And how we met was at a business club, right? A business club. That is a worldwide business club, and you interviewed me for Profiles in Success, and I got to see your interview style, so I'm on the hook here today. Right? On the hook. But I want to talk, this illustrious career. You sold your company, and now you're consulting, right? And kind of working your way out of the business world and saying, I created this thing, and now I can move on. And so I want to talk about that. Before we get to that, however, I want to talk about your early days. Did you know that this is what you wanted to do? Because a business owner's watching, and they're saying, if I'm going to start this business, how am I going to end this business? Right? So give us some insight on what you've learned about that.
Well, certainly as a farm boy from Nebraska, I was not exposed to the investment world.
No inclination.
No inclination whatsoever. But I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, a small family farm. It's where my values were instilled. So I'm deeply appreciative of that experience that I had on the farm, and I think it actually makes me a good wealth manager, throughout my career. But there was a point in time I came to Washington D.C. On an internship on Capitol Hill. I worked on Capitol Hill for 2.5 years. Finished my education at the University of Virginia. Okay. And after 2 years, again, since I transferred in, I only needed 2 more years. So I went into the business world. I knew that I didn't want to stay in politics after 2.5 years in Capitol Hill. So,
I know that feeling. My daughter went through that. She said, I'm going to work in politics. No, I don't want to work in politics.
It might be fun, initially, but it that fun for me wore off. But again, business seemed like the way to go, because that would give me different avenues to go. I studied to be an accountant, and I started off my career in the accounting profession. Started off with PricewaterhouseCoopers. However, 5 years into the industry, there were some things going on in my life, and I said, I don't feel like I'm living my why. This is not Gordon Bernhardt. Was meant to be or meant to do. So I at the time, I had started an investment club with some of my fellow employees at the last corporation I was at. And I said, maybe financial services would be the way to make an impact. Because I was looking for a way to make an impact in people's lives.
Right. And not just make a dime.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
And I think that's what a lot of business owners try to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, I took that pivot, so from farm, Capitol Hill politics, to the business world, to the financial services. And so I've been blessed to have a 30-plus year career in financial services, and to have built a company, served some wonderful clients. And now, at this stage in my life, I've got this tremendous, business network that I have. I still want to serve people. I want to be on, boards. I want to basically be available to help people still make smart, a good financial advisor, if that's what they're, to be a resource and say, here's an attorney or here's an accountant that you need.
Right. I love that. And you built that over 30 years, this big network. It's kind of that, I always tell this to my clients. It's like being, building a spider web. Right? I'm going to be bit by a spider. No, it's not that. It's design. It's attractive. Right? It attracts people in, and you've done that. And so I want to ask you from a business perspective, where do you think people fall short as business owners in lacking the attractiveness?
That's a good question. And it's because I always say that from a financial advisor, I think it's important that a financial advisor exhibit four things: character, so that means that they have integrity, that connect, serve, that they're caring. Because in my industry, that's really important.
Oh yeah, you can't just be trans.
So the four C's in business, the same thing applies clearly. Because chemistry is very, important in terms of building clients. And the character, I think, in the business world, and that's actually one of the reasons why I started writing Profiles of Success too, is because the world, the media and Hollywood, portrays business in a poor light.
Yes.
We're often the villains. And yet, and there are certainly companies that have done some outrageous things.
In every business,
But most of the world, again, we're blessed to have such a strong small business community across America. And these people are hardworking people, have great integrity, and they want to make an impact with people. So I think part of it is, for me, I think what people, to answer your question, is that I think it's almost like burn your bridges to a certain extent, and who you're serving, that once you do that, I think you become a magnet. And people are attracted to this vision that you have about the people you serve and what you want to do. At least that's how I felt.
Well, and I kind of feel that too, because it's about the, I love that you said character, because integrity is one of the first things, and your concept here of burning bridges is that everything that I do is client centric. And that is what you're saying is, despite, yes, I got this relationship, but I have to leave you behind. Go and serve my client in the way that I want my client, to be served. And I think that's beautiful. I love these four C's. So character, chemistry, caring, and competency. So let's talk about being competent. Oh my gosh. A lot of people in business, and I mentioned not too long ago about, in fact, on one of the other interviews that I had here, about the competency piece of it, is that when we become entrepreneurs and business owners, we bring a set of skills, we bring experiences, and our education. Maybe our education comes in that too, our life experiences, right? And so often we stop because we say, okay, I used all that there. I don't think I need it here, even though I might be training, educating my clients in that facet. We stop learning. And we bring that in and we say, okay, we're done. Let that be done. And now I'm going to be a business owner and I'm going to focus on the business and not about gaining the edge, having the edge, keeping that up. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree completely, because again, a lot of people build this business, but they're working in the business
and not on it.
Right. And that's one of the biggest things that people need to do, is just change their perspective. Now, granted, starting off, it may be important to work in the business because because again, it's a struggle. I struggled to start mine. And, but again, at some point you got to start working on the business so it's scalable, so it's marketable, so then it attracts more people.
I love that. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to learn more about how you sustain your business. So stick with us. We'll be right back. So welcome back. Welcome back to Business on the Vine. Thank you so much for joining us and coming back. I'm sitting here talking with Gordon Bernhardt, who is a business extraordinaire. I can't even get the best words for you. I mean, there is so much that I want to unpack with you, and we just can't unpack it all. You're now consulting companies and consulting boards, to have a sustainable business. So, when we went to the break, we were talking about character and competency and how you have to continually learn and be that. You sustain. It's very rare, Gordon. You have to know that. For someone to say, I had my own business for 30 years. Especially in financial services, especially in something that has ups and downs with economies and markets and presidents and all wars and all those things. What counsel do you want to give to someone to have a sustainable business, what are the core items? And it could be a multitude, but core principles that you have employed and deployed, and what you're going to be sharing with people in the future.
Yeah. So with regards to, again, the registered investment advisory space that I come from, the things that were important to me in building that sustainable business were to, again, know where you're going,
Yeah.
who you're attracted to, but then it also helped quite dysfunctional. I'm one of the biggest critics of the financial services industry, but yet it's the way to build wealth. And I think people should hire an advisor. But when you look at all the investments out there, there are Nobel Prize winning theories that should be followed. So I think I want them to follow those principles and develop. They ask deep questions. They get to understand, the goals, the objectives, the legacies that their clients want to achieve. And once they understand that, it's easier then to implement the plan, to move forward.
Yeah. It's interesting because I tell my clients all the time, slow down so you can speed up instead of speeding up to slow down.
Yes.
Right. And so what you're saying is take time to plan. Because I know everyone's going in that hurry, that glorification of busyness, like next. I'll just have a little chat with them and a transaction, we'll move on to the next. But what you're saying is if you just take a few minutes to learn what your clients need, show that care, show that competency, right? Have that character, and you put all those in there, that one client can turn into many and worth your time, right? So your clients are what made you so successful.
And I'll also say that my team.
Okay, good. I love team.
Because I couldn't have done it by myself. I wouldn't have been able to do over 600 interviews in profile.
Right, if you were constantly working on the business,
When I wouldn't have been able to take off 49 days to walk on the Camino de Santiago. So the team do that. And that is along the way from when I quit working in the business and started working on the business, when I went through the hiring process and eventually got somebody that said, okay, I've got some great people here. They deserve to have a better me. So I started looking at who do I need to be to lead them. So I wouldn't have been able to do that without the team. So the team
that I coach about moving from the hustle to the harmony, which in your context is from in and on. And of course, mine is above and beyond. I don't even believe in or on. But why do you think so many people resist bringing a team on? There could be, again, multiple reasons.
Yeah, there could be multiple. There are good people.
And there are,
And again, I'm in the CEO group and we discuss that all the time. Let's face it, we can joke and say that business would be fun if we have to manage people. How many times have you heard that?
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to have a big team.
It's a challenge, but it's also then, again, let's face it, some people are micromanagers, and some people don't want to do any management whatsoever.
Right, and so they have problems.
But it's that balance. You got to find out what, just like we were working with clients, what you pointed out. Same with my teammates. I got to understand, what are their dreams so that I can help them pivot to take this avenue to get to that destination that they're trying to get to.
Right. And I think that's important in a business, that you have a vision that's large enough to include your team. Because if your vision is just, I want to make money, I want to be successful, and you're not allowing for your team to have growth behind that. Yeah. So teams are really important. I'm an advocate for teams, like from day one teams. What are some other things? What are some other things that hold people back from just, I don't want to babysit? I know a lot of business owners babysitting job. It's not, if you do it properly, and I know you know that. What else holds people back?
And I think you've documented this well throughout your career, are the processes that must be there. You wouldn't have become where you are today early in your career if you didn't develop processes to help you through that process, to help
Yeah.
manage your clients. So
Yeah.
for us, we did the same thing. We had to create processes to basically so that it was easy. When somebody came in, they could just open up our manual, say, here's what you need to
Here's
do.
what you do.
If
Right.
granted, for our staff that's basically completing our paperwork, obviously from a standpoint of advice, it's hard to have a process without giving an individual advice, because everything is so individualized between the legacy that you and Brian want to create versus what somebody else
Yeah, the
wants to create.
DNA that everybody
Yes.
brings in. And I found that in my coaching too, is just that, I was asked on stage one time, what's the first hire that you do? And I know the E-Myth says, to hire an ad you bring into this. You mentioned that you learned along the way that I had to be a good leader and I had to change me. I think that a lot of people come in and they don't have those leadership skills, right? And because they don't have those leadership skills, they're apprehensive about bringing anybody on. This is where that competency comes. You have to constantly grow, right? One of the things I found, I just want to get your take on this too, is the financial piece of this. Is I can't afford to hire anybody. What do you say to something like that?
Clearly, when businesses have a high failure rate from
Yes.
startup to
Yes, they do.
so it is hard, and sometimes it's just purely one's is mismanaging their budget, whatever they have, whatever the resources. Granted, I went into heavy debt to start my business, and so it is important to be prudent with your resources, but you also have to know when is the right time for me to start taking things off my plate
and
delegate that to somebody else. When it gets to that time, it's important to hire somebody, even if that makes your cash flow tight.
A little dip for a while, but it's like a shift.
Yes.
Well, we're going to take another break. Thank you so much for all of that great insight and counsel. And we will see you back here in just a few minutes. We'll continue our conversation. Welcome back. We're so glad that you joined me and us, right? I'm here with Gordon Bernhardt, and we better do another little cheers.
How many times have we done cheers in between these things? Right?
Fortunately, we're not tipsy.
Yeah, thank God.
And we're here at beautiful Bluemont Vineyard in Bluemont, Virginia. It's just an absolutely beautiful location. My house is down there at the bottom. It just never grows old, right? And we want to thank Bluemont Vineyard for having us and hosting us for this, So we are here in the vines, right?
And we want to talk about herd it through the grapevine. Herd it through the grapevine. We want to plant seeds and harvest ideas, right? Squash some things, right? Stomp some things out. As we move into this last segment that we're spending time together, you've moved out right into your business. You've sold your business. You've built this beautiful business. You were able to exit it in a beautiful way and still do consulting, still giving back to the community, being on boards and helping other businesses. What kind of counsel do you want to give to a business owner that's watching this and saying, what's next for me? What's next in a turbulent market? Right? We just have a new president, regardless of what side. It's another market. It's another change. What do you say to someone who is just going, I don't know what I can do. Everything's different. What do? I don't think I can survive. What did you do? And what do you tell them to do?
There's a couple things that I'll share here. One is and one of it's, I heard a CEO say this once, because when you think of over the past 30 years that we business cycles that we've gone through, not just the investment cycles, but just the business cycles that we've seen. I heard one CEO, a woman, say, "I refuse to participate in the recession."
Yes.
So if that's where we are, it's a mental mindset not to participate. In my business, I think this applies to a lot of businesses too. I always encourage folks to focus on what they. Everything else out. We can't control what President Trump is going to do. He has his own ideas. Yeah. We've seen a lot of volatility with tariffs. We've seen the market come back up, so maybe it's not as bad as it was. But and we had again volatility under Biden and
Obama, we will in the future.
Yes, so there's under Democrat or Republican. that's not a factor we can control.
Right.
So I say you shouldn't focus on what we see going on in the government or what we see in the investment markets. We should focus on the things we can control. So, in my business, the things we can control are how much are we going to invest?
Right.
Right. So don't discontinue the plan that your advisor and you have created. You should stay focused on that, because that's something you can control. You can't control interest rates. You can't control what the Fed to do, but you can control the investment choices you make. And again, study after study says we should focus on buying a portfolio of low cost investments, be diversified. So those are the things we can control, and then to rebalance the portfolio periodically. But I think the same thing in the business world.
Yeah,
Again,
is focus on what your investments are. Are you investing in people? Are you investing in new technology? Are you investing what later? Why don't business owners take this long view?
They're in the weeds.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the value of a coach,
yeah,
the business coach is, is that the clients you serve, able to look on the outside. And sometimes we get so focused on this, or we get caught up in the concerns, concerns of customers or clients or teammates. So certainly a good business coach, I think, is a good investment. And that may be one of the things, when that first employee, to hire that. Right. I know it made a big difference for me to have a coach along the way, and I became a better leader once I started doing that, and to become the leader that my team needed me to be.
Yeah, I do see that. And long term, we talked about sustainability and having a long-term business. We know statistically, and I may have, by the time this comes out, the numbers may be a little bit off, right? They always are, but 68% of businesses are making less than $100,000 a year, and of that, the average right now is $68,000 and some change, and most make less than $25,000.
Yes.
Right, most are making that. And so when we look at those statistics, and by the way, I'm demonstrating my competence about staying in the market, right? Staying in the market. But when we look at those types of statistics, it's my passion and yours as well is to stay in the long haul. Let's look at the long haul and not, I always share this kind of story is that, if you're a turtle, the only thing you see is grass. And so if you're down there and you're just looking at the grass and looking at all the things that are being affected by it, it's totally different than when you're a giraffe and you can see a different perspective, right? And that perspective is what a coach gives you. We can't see our own ears, and I know my coach has said to me, "Don't you coach on this?" And I say, "Yeah, I do. I just can't see my own ears," right? We have those.
Who do you turn to at a later point, having a coach to get started and get things going, but who do you turn to in addition to a coach?
I think we all have trusted friends that are resources to us when we face something unusual. Our coach is important, but then this elite, small circle of friends that have earned their trust. You trust their counsel. You consider them to be wise. They know you well enough to give you some advice. And I've had that when I've done zigs and zags through my industry career. I thank God for those close friends that knew me well enough to say, "Don't go that way. You should go this way."
Yeah. And I think it's friends, right? It's also a board of advisors who don't have to be in your line of work, right? They're seeing other things. It's just too much work to try to figure it out on your own. Don't you think? I mean, it's
totally agree. And that's again my business coach is a Vistage chair. And so, but the peers in my Vistage group too are that type of board of advisors where you're getting all this feedback from other CEOs.
So don't go it alone, right?
Don't go it alone.
Okay, so we're finishing up our time together. What do you want to share with a business owner? And in your mind, it's going to be someone who's long-term, short-term, brand new, etc. What do you want to embark on them?
I'm gonna pivot in a different way that you're probably not
Okay.
expecting, Jen.
I'm okay with that.
I love a 6-word story.
Yes. Oh, I know you do. You just shared this with us.
And to me, it's like if it helps a CEO if they can create their 6-word story.
Yeah.
I think it helps them then maintain focus.
Right, and point them in the path.
And I think it also then allows people to sit back and say, hey, I can buy into that. So, I was in the Stanford Visti's Executive Leadership Program, and I heard about the 6-word story for the first time. If the history of it goes back to Ernest Hemingway, supposedly, where basically he was with some friends and they made a bet saying, I think you can tell a story in 6 words.
6 words. Yeah.
So he's, bets were placed. He wrote down on a napkin what 6 words were, passed it around, and he collected his winnings. Now the 6 words that he wrote were for sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Yeah.
Says a lot.
Says
From
everything.
everything. From a business.
So when we did that, we had to actually, create 6-word stories for, myself.
Yeah.
One of them was from farm values to urban impact, which, it's basically goes back to my roots, to basically what I'm now doing, helping people again make the impact that they want, create the legacy they want. But I think even from a leadership perspective, I basically, my 6-word story is lead ethically, advise wisely, empower legacy. And so I think that's an important part of it.
I love that you want to leave that with people, because thank you for sharing that. I reminded me that you shared that in a business circle that we were just in together, right?
Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Gordon, for being with us today.
Thank
You
you,
have
Jen.
so much knowledge that we haven't even tapped into. So how can people find you?
So I'm on the website. I have 2 different websites. One can go to profilesInSuccess.com to see the 600 plus people that I've interviewed, and I think they are inspirational people. You'll see Jen's interview there. My book, you can find more information on my book on my personal website, which is GordonJBernhardt.com.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. And here's to you,
Thank you,
and
Jen.
Business on the Vine.
Thank
you
you
so much.
And thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We will catch you next time.